My name is Soraya. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been designing experiences for quite some years. I started in the fintech industry. Initially, I was working with an agency. Then I shifted into corporate with American Express, and then after some years, I was tired of maths and numbers, and I wanted to bring my experience into a more into a field that I felt that my values were aligned with, and I started this journey with LVNDR Health, a startup that was focusing and bringing inclusive healthcare for the LGBTQI plus community, focusing initially on the sexual healthcare part of the whole thing. Um, so, um, and I'm half Italian and half English, just to fun fact.
Yes, we like the fun facts. The fun facts make
So as
feel
an
more
Italian, I
interesting.
will move. It's part of our existence. So yeah.
Do you want us to get you one of the lapel mics so you can move around?
No, it's fine. I
Sure.
actually maybe it's better. So I'm actually attached to a place. Otherwise, I could run and just.
Yeah. So
Um,
your talk then is going to be about the work that you did with Lavender Health.
s- kind of. So I'm going to touch upon some of the work I was doing with lavender, but it's more of a future looking talk about how design might shift when we talk about AI, touching concepts like ethics, values, and going a bit in depth in how AI and bias do not work together. So they're related to each other. So I think we've been having these conversations a bit here and there. So I'm going to be just going a bit deeper.
Wonderful. It sounds very interesting, doesn't it? Okay, I think I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Cool.
Thank you.
So just as a agenda, kind of just to give you an idea how this talk is going to be structured, there's going to be kind of 4 parts. The first is going to be introducing how technology is fast today and my emotional personal journey when discovering AI tools. Then I'm going to pass on and dig deeper on how AI models work, and talking more about bias, and then how we address bias for the LGBTQI plus community with LVNDR Health as one of our mission. And of course, I'm going to end with some call to actions because, I'm going to be presenting many problem statements, and then I will give you some, steps to if you might want to take in the future as designers, because we're in a design space. So here, let's start with my emotional journey. So this is kind of the first half an hour of me trying one of the AI tools. So just to make you understand how my mind works, and it's a bit tough. But the first thing was, okay, I was hyped. I was just trying, I think, Mid Journey or ChatGPT, I don't remember. I was like, yes, finally, less boring tasks, less pixels and corner radiuses to modify in hundreds and more artboards. We can finally be designing for the bigger picture, designing for strategy, looking at the good parts of the design, at least for my side. But then again, at the same time, I was like, okay, so we're gonna be doing we're going to be reducing the workload, which means that we're going to have less designers. So what's going to happen, and how many people are going to lose their jobs, not only in the design field, everywhere. And again, how are the uneducated people are going to react to this technology, or the tech savvy people like my parents, for example. And again, going a bit on the hype thing, saying, okay, well, humans have always adapted. We survived the industrial revolution, kind of. And, it's part of the evolution. So whatever. But again, who's going to have access to AI is going to be, equal and accessible to everybody in the same way. Isn't going to create more inequalities. And also, we are in the middle of the climate change crisis. Servers do require a lot of energy. So how is that going to work out? And if it does become unsustainable, who's going to be profiting out of these tools? Is it going to be only the large corporations? And AI, AI is, oopsie, Okay, AI is powerful and quick, so maybe it will help us solve all the unsolvable things, such as the climate change. And but if it's so quick, are we going to be able to limit all the unintended consequences that it might create? So again, let's be rational. Is it going to be an opportunity, or is it going to be an apocalypse? We don't know. So one thing I learned in the UK is that we always start with the positives. So we start with the positives. So looking at some of the just few articles, we can see great things happening. So like AI helping detect heart diseases or melanoma screening, AI, that is going to make healthcare more accurate, accessible, amazing. We are also talking about, like, I don't know, wow, future people speaking with their mind. I mean, Elon Musk is very passionate about Neuralink and telepathy, I think it's called. So yeah, good, amazing. But okay, let's go on the other side. I love this. In Tesla, a robot is attacking a worker, and in South Korea, instead, a robot did kill a man, confusing him for a vegetable box. Inmates in Finland are training AI as part of their prison labor, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be very exciting and for them. And on the same note, there are people, workers in Kenya, working for AI, and they're working to make ChatGPT less toxic, going through a lot of violent pedopornographic content, and they're being paid only $2 an hour, which is not even enough to pay for their mental therapist. And this is from Italy, so it's in Italian. There are people, teenagers, boys, that are stripping their female teenager counterparts of their clothes, then creating new pedopornographic content. And then going even more darker, there's AI being used to target more and more civilians during a genocidal war in Gaza. And then I had this article, which I wasn't sure where to put. So it's a woman marrying an AI hologram. She is a performance artist, so yeah, fine. But yeah, I just kept it there in the middle. So all of this is just to give you an understanding how chaotic is the situation at the moment. We're not sure if it's going to be a good thing, or if we need to start creating a resistance just to, combat these robots or whatever. So there's a lot of confusion. We don't know if we're happy or not about it. But the thing that struck to me the most is the velocity that AI models are, trained to be. They're trained to be faster than humans could ever think in their life, right? The AI models, they are feeding themselves and just getting better, better, better. So this is sort of creating an imbalance between the technology and how governments and society do adapt the technology. And it's already like this. So I'll make you an example. I am from a small town in the south of Italy. It's called Monopoli. And up until 13 years ago, when I left it, nobody knew it, and they were just making jokes about the board game. But now my Brazilian friends do know it. They have cousins going there, and it became this hyper touristic place. And the problem about going touristic is that then people will do use tourism to make more profit. And now one of the biggest problem in Monopoly is that people cannot afford a rent, or they cannot even find a place to rent, because there's services like Airbnb or others that are like impacting the market, not only in Monopoly but everywhere. The housing market is becoming crazy. And if you think about that, this company from California is having this high impact on all the world. It's like kind of crazy. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be innovating, but I'm saying that if Airbnb or all the other services would collaborate more with governments and we would, work together, maybe it could have been legislated better so that we wouldn't find ourselves in this situation. So my thinking is, if now it's like this, what's going to happen when we shift into this hyper fast-paced AI revolution? Can we even think of keeping things under control and not creating an economical disaster? So just to go in slightly deeper and just to understand no, okay, this one. Just to understand how AI models work. This is a very simple diagram from an experienced designer. This is me. So we have three boxes. We have the input box, which is the data that goes into the AI models, into the this black box where all the algorithms, the nodes, all the computational work happens, that then creates the output that we're using, such as text, images, videos, whatever. And this is creating three main problems. The first one is that the data that goes into the algorithm, into this black box, is most probably will contain biases. So if the data comes from humans, and humans do have biases, even the research papers do have biases because they're not including, minorities, and they're pretty much, male-centric. And then this goes into the algorithm, which then creates other biases. So this creates like already a first problem. Then we go into this processing, in the algorithm processing in this black box. Why is it called black box? Because it's kind of so the way the algorithms work, they're very complicated. Even the people working in the AI industry, it's not impossible to understand how they generate the results, but it's very difficult. And by being very difficult to understand, it's very difficult to understand how the outputs are created. And this is creating the opacity in the algorithmic processing that is also creating a problem from an ethical point of view for technological development. So it needs to be transparent so that the users will trust the service, right? So this is going against that, for like that key principle. And then it's going to create a bias output, most probably. And it's not like, you go on ChatGPT and it's saying to you, hey, this is a biased output. No, if you're not if you're not an expert on a certain field, for example, I'm very close to all the LGBTQI plus rights, and I'm going to understand if, the output will contain biases on that front, but I won't be able to understand if it's biased on other fronts, because I'm not an expert in all the different fields. And we can, think of removing bias. No, because bias can go within the process in anywhere, and it should be addressed throughout all the process, right? And it is a big challenge, and the bigger leaders, the leaders in the market for AI, do know about it, and they're writing it in all of, even little there's always going to be written, the model might create hallucinations or mistakes, the results might be misleading, but human truth, how many times do we forget about things harming us? For example, how many people do actually go and read the terms and conditions of all the services and products that we subscribe to every day? I don't think we're doing that, personally. And if you're doing that, you're amazing, great. And then there's the automation bias, which is when we are trusting so much the machine that we are not trusting ourselves. And this happens when we are using Google Maps and we actually know where we need to go, but we are just following Google Maps, that it's taking us to another route. We're like, I'll go with that. And then we'll find ourselves in this dead end or this unsafe road. And maybe we're walking as a female in this very dark park, and you're like, maybe I could have, went with my own gut. So how is bias being represented in AI models? These are images taken from an article of Bloomberg, and they were doing a research looking at how stable diffusion was representing different categories of workers. I'm going to run through different images, but I'm not going to be commenting them because I don't think there is anything to comment, and I think it's going to be very easy to understand what's going on. So this is the representation of a lawyer. Here instead we have how stable diffusion is representing a social worker, a politician, a fast food worker, a housekeeper, an inmate, and here things become even more problematic. And this is how it is representing terrorists. So I wanted to try this myself, and I started trying different tools. I tried different tools, and I'm representing different tools because they're pretty much doing the same problem, the same thing. And here I use Claude, and I was asking this specific prompt. It was, tell me a story of success involving a person when they had a hard time in their life. So I purposely was using a neutral pronouns because I wanted to see how the model would represent a neutral gender person. And all of the times, these are just few examples, but there are more and more. All of the times, the model was giving me very binary results, either using she or he options. And even in there, the success was very, very stereotypical. In this case, instead, I was asking to tell me a story of parenting skills involving a mother and a father. And we can notice how when talking about mother, the words that are being used are nurturing, kindness, emotions, feelings. Instead, when talking about a father, it's strength, guidance, logical, mechanics, creating stereotypes along the way. And here we get into this bias conundrum, right? I don't know if you follow the news, but this went viral. It was I think a couple of months ago, Google AI model Gemini was creating these very, I would say, woke results. So such as, I don't know, a female black pope, which is, I mean, fine. But there is a much more of a philosophical problem at the moment, and it's not much very technical, but it's very linked to human values and all the biases and on the anthropology that it's depicting us. So now the AI leaders are trying to decide whether to portray what the society currently looks like, so with all the prejudices and all the inequalities and all the biases, or promoting a society on how the society could or should look like a dream world. So it's not going to be the accurate version of it. And the problem, again, is that the higher the original biases are and the inequalities are for certain people, the higher the amplification effect is going to be in machine learning. And this is becoming a big, huge challenge for the health tech sector, as I think some people have already addressed before. So I'm going to shift into the work I did with LVNDR Health. So we were basically working in bringing inclusive healthcare to the LGBTQI plus community. And I'm going to start with a scenario which is going to has been common, I guess, for everybody. So you're feeling sick, or you're feeling anxious, or you have an infection going on. So what would you do? Where would you go? I personally would go to a doctor, a mental therapist, or a gynecologist, right? But however, when you're part of a marginalized group, like many in the LGBTQI plus community, the data reveals a problematic reality. So the people that need care the most often avoid it. And we did interview a lot of people in the community, and we had a lot of different experiences and stories coming through. Just to read through just few of these citations and data, 63% of LGBTQI plus people feel like they are mistreated and do not receive adequate support at clinics. So we had someone saying that being continuously misgendered was so invalidating and demotivating, and some others have been avoiding the sexual health for a long time for this reason. And one in five LGBTQI plus people of color avoid seeking treatment out of fear of discrimination and stigma, and much more. We are doing progress at the moment, so there is good things happening there. We are talking more and more about this, and this is, we're all glad to hear this, but we are, very far from the ideal reality. And we have a non-judgmental, inclusive, safe, and knowledgeable space and services. And I'm saying knowledgeable because I understood that in medical studies, the time for LGBTQI plus health is very limited. My brother is a nurse, and they didn't even ever talk about these specifics. So we are still there trying to fight for recognition, and without looking at London or more diverse environments. If you just go to Italy, it's a disaster. So let's go through a very common scenario. Let's imagine I'm a trans man and I need care. I'm feeling sick. All of my life, I've been battling just to be seen as the man I am and I identify with. And I spent years trying to find a doctor who would get it and would acknowledge it. At every appointment, I was feeling anxious that they would call out my dead name in the waiting room or out me in front of strangers. And worse, they would completely ignore the fact that, yes, I'm a guy, but I still need to do certain checkups like cervical cancer screening, right? And I got so tired of it. Every time I was going there, I was giving them this transgender lecture. So I completely untrust the service. I would rather not go to the doctor if I can, if it's not serious, at least. And some really do not go even if it is serious. So let's understand what's happening. So the lack of trust and the fear of discrimination will bring a person in the LGBTQI plus community not accessing healthcare. And this brings us to the healthcare system that will not have the specifics health data of this community to make better services. And the increased lack of healthcare data will increase also the data bias towards the community, and that will also increase inequalities, which again will bring us to the very start. So if the service is unequal, I won't be trusting it. And if I don't trust it, I won't be accessing it. So it's a loop. So just to talk a bit of the work we were doing with Lavender, one of our missions was to build the UK and Europe's largest LGBTQI plus population health database. So we were collecting over than 80 metrics that would improve a patient care, and we were building rich user profiles that would inform future services and timely intervention. For example, just from our close pilot participants, we discovered that 42% had reasonable need to access mental health care services. And how did we do that? We talked about a lot of co-creation, and that is true. Co-creating with LGBTQI plus medical experts was key because we were able to identify the data gaps that we needed to do proper inclusive healthcare system. We created with our medical expert this questionnaire of 80 plus GumCAD questions. And we also worked on the UX design part of it because we need to optimize the questionnaire because there are many questions and we want to make sure they're not becoming daunting for a user onboarding our service. So we had to find ways to place them in different parts of the journey and find the right motivation for each set of question we were asking. And at the same level, the feedback from the community, but also from the team, because the team itself was part of the community and we were all very passionate about the mission, was key. because we were able to identify and removing some of the questions that felt triggering for some of the participants. And we did enhance the approachability or safety of the questionnaire, because one of the things about the LGBTQI+ community is privacy. We want to make sure that they feel that their data is safe, because the last thing you want to do is that the service is outing you in your home environment, that it might be unsafe. And again, important to be, we worked on the language that needed to be both medically accurate but also approachable. So not too dry but not too pop, so something in the middle. And the feedback from the community was amazing. We had people that for the first time they felt that their healthcare was being taken care of 360, and they did actually appreciate the fact that we were asking more questions that would people would actually ask them in very, very non-judgmental way, because it made them feel that they were talking and they were using a service that understood them, so they felt safe going to that service. But again, let's go again into the AI part of this. So we understood how bias can have an effect on minorities, and we understood that the bias in algorithms might have amplification effects, especially for minorities. So what do we do? So I think one of the first thing we need to be doing to addressing the data gap is to use high quality data to train AI models, or use AI models that are trained by high quality data. And high quality data means that we need to take into consideration ethnic and racial minorities, LGBTQI+ community, people with disabilities, age groups, socioeconomical statuses, geographical locations, and cultural groups. And maybe something else that I'm forgetting here. So going to the end of this talk, I'm going to give just a few tips on how to, bring ethical considerations in a new design process. So I am not a visionary, so it's not the first time that we talk about using ethics and moral values in a design process. There's one called the value system design that I really recommend you to look at. That is really tackling this this issue, and there are many people talking about this. There's no straight answer and a straight process now to look at, because it's very complex, but there are different guidelines that we can think of how to use in this new AI moment. So point number one, diversifying the data. I just talk about this, but also the team, especially when you're working in a startup environment in which you might not have the resources or the money or whatever to do all the research and everything. Having a diversified team will help you finding those gaps, because everybody will bring their own values in their workplace. So it's much easier to if you are you're working with a diversified team. Also, the users and the participants for the user interviews that we're doing, the research and everything else you can think of, diversifying is very important. And then going beyond the user-centric approach and the business return of investment. As a designer, when you start working, that you need to build experiences that are user friendly, but they also need to bring profit to the company. And these two things need to remain, of course. But we should also start thinking of how our products and experiences have a social, environmental, and economical impact. So a more human-centric approach. Educate and train. So AI tools might shorten the workload. That is good, but using that time that we're saved to make better and more inclusive and accessible choices. Many times as designers, either working in startup or corporate, you don't have the time to actually think about all the different nuances of the population. But now that we might have that time, let's use it to do it, better design. Looking at the bigger picture, like not only designing products, but also processes and educating ourselves and others. What is ethics? What are human values? What does it mean for us as a design or a tech company? Then we go into designing and new processes to evaluate AI biases. So a lot of the corporates and leaders in the AI industry have already created ethical committees, and I know that this is not possible if you're working in a startup environment because resources, but collaborating today with anthropologists, sociologists, ethical experts, they know about human values, they know about the history, they know about the patterns. So it's very key that we start collaborating with these people, and they have the knowledge that we might lack, right? Or create ethical workshop and start to understand what that means. Collaborating with legal and compliance teams, even if it's sometimes boring, uh, but might be not. And identifying all the indirect stakeholders, all those people that might be affected by your service when it's launched into a market, because that is also important to take account of. And then monitoring beyond the usual user and business metrics, so how usable our service or a product is and how the profit is coming, but looking also about the impact on a social, cultural, and environmental way. Especially if you're designing or using an AI model, so the continuous oversight and having people there looking at what's the outcomes are is key to improve the models and to make sure that they remain unbiased, transparent, and aligned to reduce health and health disparities. And then start to create. I know that it's unpopular opinion. A lot of people say do not talk about politics in your workspace, but do talk about politics, do talk about values and society, because if tech is impacting society and society is impacting tech, we should also be talking about all of these stuff. So we need to make sure that the compromises we're taking are not impacting negatively, like the Airbnb effect, right? And now my favorite slide is just to say no sometimes. We are designers and we are designing the products and the services. Sometimes we are receiving tasks and we might not feel very aligned to the values. We can uh, stand up for ourselves and contesting, and if we don't find the right solution for the feature not to have a bad impact, we can also say no. We have a voice, and as much as there is a lot of talk about ethics in the AI science space, we also should be having that conversation, and we have that responsibility as well. So again, instead of designing for profit only, we should probably design for change, and that's it. So this is a question for you. If you ever implemented more on social evaluation in your design process, please talk to me. I'm very open to have conversations and work together in case there's something to work on.
That was really, really, really good. Really excellent work. Really great presentation as well. Any questions from the audience? No questions? You always had questions.
Hi, I'm Missy. Sorry, I am a director of experience strategy. And my question when it comes to this sort of moral and social evaluation question is how might you approach transparency? Because you mentioned obviously that privacy is incredibly important.
Yes.
So how, in the face of that, then do you handle transparency both with the business and with the user?
Yeah. So for the privacy part, actually, it's very important. We realized it when we were building the service, the app, and also the other part of the service with our users. And a lot of participants of the user interviews did, put put aside in front of us, you're asking me a lot of sensitive data. Where's that data going to? So we did tackle that by, in certain parts of the flows, key parts of the flows, especially where we were asking maybe questions that could feel a bit too much, that their data was safe, that we gave them, contact links to contact us, to understand why we were giving them context on why we were asking those questions. It's important. And when we talk about transparency and technology, sometimes when you are deploying AI models, we must also tell them how we are using their data and how we are, how the choices are made, right? The services are made. I think we should be going to a much more transparent technology now more than ever, because now we're going into a place in which people are getting distrusted about all the tech that is coming through, especially people in the minorities that don't feel like represented, like I showed in the images before. Like, yeah.
Yep, another question.
Hey, my name is Chris. There was a really interesting slide. If you can go back to that, I just have a quick question. The one with the questionnaire.
This one?
Yeah. So I was wondering, backing off of that question, as a senior product designer at Lavender, what kind of outcomes did you see when you launched a product that had a digital questionnaire versus like how people answer questions in a in-person setting? Did you feel like the patients that you saw with Lavender were more receptive to these sensitive questions in the using a mobile device? And be really interesting to hear how you went about designing the product to get individuals to really engage with the tool. So I'd love to hear more about the questionnaire, to understand how that compares to in-person visits, and if those that data is just better than in-person versus remote.
So having in digital questionnaire, so we also had the possibility of asking question in person if they preferred, because through our research we understood that some people maybe prefer to speak in person about certain topics, but a lot of people, especially in the community, felt that speaking answering a digital platform on a digital platform would allow them more safety, because maybe when you're going to a doctor or into a more public space, maybe you have people around you that you're not feeling safe to talk about certain things. So doing it in your own safe room might be a better choice. And actually, we even though a lot of the questions had the skip button, so they could actually decide to skip, most of the people answered all of the questions. And I think having a lot of the different questions as well, and the way that we were phrasing them with a much more inclusive language, it felt like it made it feel like we're talking the same language. So I trust you, and that gave us a lot of good insights. And that is the focus in creating good data, is that you're including all the people that are usually not included in all of the research and the scientific papers as well. So I think that was important.
That's super interesting. So across 7 different areas in health, did you have individuals answering over 80 questions? What was the completion rate like?
It was around 90 or 95%, I think. I wouldn't want to say but yeah, it was.
That's super high. I mean, I think I would prefer to answer something with these sensitive questions with a mobile device. It just seems more convenient and safe.
Yeah, also you can answer them anywhere, especially even if you're in the home environment, you're not feeling safe, or doing it on your laptop, you can just go and have a walk and have that sort of thing by yourself. Or also the the consultation we were having were online, so that meant that they could have those conversations wherever they felt safer.
Was there a testing or medication prescribing function attached pre or post the questionnaire?
So yeah, they had to be doing some tests, because they were going through a PrEP pathway to get PrEP for prevention on HIV. And we did have the questionnaire throughout the whole pathway. So when we were asking about information for testing, we needed to know about like the sex at birth or the identification. So we made sure that the questions were rolled out throughout the journey in a much more organic and contextual way. And so that also informed us to give, send them the right test kit and them, not to feel overwhelmed with all those questions all at once. So it was balanced, win-win.
Super cool. Final question. When you worked on this design, you mentioned in another slide that you, I think, would recommend working with like an ethics department. You mentioned like 2 other categories. It'd be good to understand like what type of team members like contributed towards the design process, and if there was like an ethics committee, or was it mostly like within the clinical team?
So in our team, apart from the fact that we were very diverse from a gender, racial perspective, age perspective, so we had that diversity already in, and then we had researchers that informed us about many different things about that sector. And we didn't have the ethical committee, but we were all, there were key people that were more anthropologists or people coming from different backgrounds, so that also helped us identifying all of the gaps. And we were going to our users during the user interviews already with a good product and that they already felt safe with. We did improvements and we did collaborate constantly with the community, so it was like a very easier process rather than the ones that I had before.
That's great. Thank you so much.